Hey guys, it's Kay. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, we are currently working on a series called Murder and Makeup, and this is part 2 of the Bob Berdella one. So feel free to leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below if there's any serial killers or cases that you want me to discuss next. Okay, so we left off with Bob finding Mark Wallace hiding in his shed from a storm. So he invited him inside and offered to inject him with chlorpromazine, telling Mark it would make him calm down and relax. Wallace accepted, and half an hour later, Bob took him captive. He was taken to the second floor bedroom. He was held captive for nearly a day and tortured with, skip ahead again if you're squeamish, alligator clips to his nipples to give him electric shocks to his body at any point. Mark began losing consciousness with this. Bob put hypodermic needles into Mark's muscles on his back. He died from a combination of the drugs, the gag, and lack of oxygen. Bob Berdella actually noted the time of death, 7 p.m. on June 23rd. September 26th, 1985, James Ferris asked to stay with Bob for a while. Berdella states that James was the first victim he intentionally inflicted torture upon, as if, he didn't torture anyone else. He drugged James with crushed tranquilizers hidden in a meal. He then tied him to his bed, almost constantly tortured him for 27 hours. Skip ahead here if you're squeamish. Berdella administered 7,700, so 7,700 volt electrical shocks to James' shoulder and testicles for up to 5 minutes at a time. He also used acupuncture via hypodermic needles to the neck and genitals. James began becoming delirious, but Berdella continued his torture until James was, and this is from Berdella's log, unable to sit up more than 10 to 15 seconds and had very delayed breathing. His next victim, Todd Stoops, a 23-year-old drug addict and occasional prostitute, ran into Berdella at Kansas City Liberty Memorial Park on June 17, 1986. He and his wife had actually stayed with Berdella before, but this was just a chance meeting. Berdella invited him to his house for lunch and sex because Todd said he needed $13 to get drugs, which would be about $33 now, it said. Bob was really attracted to Todd and kept him captive for 2 weeks before he died. To make Todd cooperative and incapacitated, Berdella used electric shocks through Todd's closed eyes to try to blind him. He also injected drain cleaner into his larynx to silence the screaming. During the second week of his captivity, Stoops asked for a soft drink and a sandwich, which Berdella refused, and Todd actually broke into tears over this. Which, at that point, I can only assume, but I would be having, caffeine headaches, you know what I mean? So I'd probably cry too, let alone being tortured like that for so long. Poor dude probably really just wanted a meal. On June 27th, Bob ruptured Todd's anal wall with his fist, causing bleeding and discharge. Toward the end of his captivity, Bob tried to feed him ice cream and soup, but Todd wasn't able to keep anything down. July 1st, 1986, Todd Stoops died. A forensic pathologist stated that the ruptured anal wall was actually what caused the death because it caused septic shock, which would be an absolutely horrible way to go. Spring 1987, Berdella befriended Larry Wayne Pearson, who entered his shop, Bob's Bizarre Bazaar. Larry stayed with Berdella for a while and did chores around the house as a way to pay rent, sort of. Berdella said he didn't plan to make Larry a victim at first, but formed the plan on June 23rd when he bailed Pearson out of jail, and he jokingly referred to his practice of robbing gay men in Wichita. Berdella made sure Pearson was intoxicated when he injected him with chlorpromazine. He took Larry to the basement and tied his hands above his head and linked the rope to a brick column before injecting his larynx with drain cleaner. Berdella said that Pearson was by far the most cooperative of his victims. The torture included, skip ahead if you're squeamish, repeated administration of electric shocks with an electric transformer, and the breaking of several ham bones with an iron rod. As a reward for being cooperative, Pearson was moved to the second floor and was told if he cooperated still, Berdella would inflict not as much pain as he had been. In the last part of his 6-week captivity. Pearson trained himself to sleep without moving to avoid annoying Berdella, basically, so that he wouldn't be sent back to the basement. And after 6 weeks of being in captivity, Pearson bit deeply into Berdella's penis and screamed that he couldn't take the poor treatment any longer. So Berdella killed him by bludgeoning him with a tree limb until he was unconscious, and then suffocated him with a bag and ligature. He then went to the hospital to get his own wound checked out. The body was dismembered and the head stored in a plastic bag in the freezer before being buried in the backyard. Disgusting. If you open your freezer, I would not want to see a head. But yet again, I'm not a serial killer, so maybe that's just me. A quote from Berdella speaking to his final victim reads, "You did not choose to be here, but you are. For you to survive being here and for you to, make it, it could either be rough or it could be easy. If I grow to like you and to trust you, then I could do special things for you, like buy you cigarettes, pick up a movie on the way home from work, and so forth. Don't try to fight me, or you'll just get more of what you had earlier. You see, what you got is nothing compared to what you can have." This was said on March 28, 1998. At 1 a.m. on that same date, Berdella abducted 23-year-old male prostitute Christopher Bryson. He lured him to his house with the promise of payment for sex. Bryson was knocked unconscious when they got there with an iron. He was then tied to Berdella's bed. Part of his torture was having his mouth repeatedly swabbed with ammonia before Berdella would say, "The only things you need to think about are you, me, and this house." After a few days, Berdella began to trust Bryson, but told him, "I've gotten this far with other people before, and they're dead now because of the mistakes they made." Christopher actually managed to escape, so here's the story of that escape. By the third day, Christopher was able to persuade Berdella to tie his hands in front of him after his daily sexual abuse, as well as persuaded him to leave on a TV with the remote between his legs when Berdella was out of the room. The next day, he broke free by burning through his restraints with a book of matches. He jumped out of the second-floor window wearing nothing but a dog collar. He broke a foot bone doing this. He ran to a meter reader that was walking on the other side of the street, yelling at them to call the cops. The police noted he had red swollen eyes and visible scars and welts across his entire body. He was taken to the hospital for treatment. And finally, Berdella's arrest. He was arrested the same day Christopher escaped. When questioned by police, Christopher mentioned that Bob had shown him Polaroids of his deceased victims. Police conducted a search warrant on Berdella's home and found the burnt ropes and torture devices in the second-floor bedroom. They also found a human skull in a closet on the second floor, a partially decayed head in the backyard, and other bones and teeth. They found 334 Polaroids and 34 snapshot prints of males. On July 22, 1988, Berdella was convicted of the murder of Larry Wayne Pearson. The next month, he pled guilty to that charge. He also pled guilty on August 24th of sodomy and assault of Christopher Bryson. He received a 7-year term for the felonious restraint against Bryson. September 13, he pled not guilty to the other 5 murder charges, but eventually conducted a plea bargain to avoid the death penalty. Between December 13th and 15th, he confessed. December 19, 1988, he waived his rights to a trial and pled guilty to each charge. He got 5 concurrent life sentences. That one was a bit of a doozy, honestly. I hate reading what he did because it's just so horrible in my mind. But if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and give me a like, subscribe down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.